So this one's from Struggling Shader. With the Metal Gear collection, we are seeing a huge polemic around resolution. Is it 720p? Is it 1080p? Why is it not 4K? So I wanted to ask, do you think raising the resolution actually improves the experience for games designed around CRTs? For instance, I don't think N64 titles like Banjo and GoldenEye look better at 4K on Xbox versus 720p on Switch. Do you think it makes a difference for PS2 era titles? And what would the quote unquote ideal display resolution for each generation in emulation based ports, and what would be the quote unquote display resolution for each generation in emulation based ports from PS1 to N64 all the way to 360 and PS3, maybe even early PS4 and Xbox One? That's quite an interesting question, John, but before I ask you about it, I've got to say that the boost in resolution on Bluepoint's Metal Gear remasters from their original to native 720p on PS360, I actually think it really complemented the artwork and made it look fantastic. So I actually would like to see it at 1080p and 4K, but I don't know about you.
Yeah, and I think this is something that varies a lot per game, and I know exactly what he's saying. First, with the Metal Gear collection, though, the problem there isn't so much the resolution choice, it's how they scale it. Like, I actually think 720p with nearest neighbor scaling to 4K, or some kind of, filter designed to create the illusion of a 720p grid would look pretty okay. But if you just take 720p and you bilinear upscale it to 4K, it looks like garbage, right? And that's probably what it's going to be. So that sucks. But it is true that a lot of older games, when you display them in high res, it basically reveals all the faults. It's absolutely true. It's especially true during the PS1 N64 era, and it's still very true during the PS2 era. I think they look their best on a CRT designed how they're to be experienced. But failing that, then I actually think this is where it makes sense to invest more in like image presentation via either like shaders or some other sort of filter effects, and doing things like downsampling as well. Like downsampling from, say, like if you do 4K internal render, but then you output it at the original intended pixel resolution, it doesn't reveal the flaws so easily because it's still a lower apparent resolution, but you clean up all the aliasing and smooth out the lines, which can look really amazing. And I actually think that would be a good solution for the different types of consoles you're dealing with. So yeah, but again, it does vary from game to game. Some games scale up to high res perfectly fine. Others, it just breaks all the visuals and it ends up looking terrible. So you got to pick and choose. And unfortunately, I think most game developers re-releasing games don't seem to get this, and they usually get it wrong, and that's a bummer. I said bummer a lot this episode, which is also a bummer.
But it is. Yeah, I mean, I think there's just the basic case that with the Metal Gear collection, we're not getting the best possible product based on this early preview, right?
Yeah.
And, certainly the concept of the original Metal Gear Solid, we've seen that there are proven techniques for actually making PS1 games look better on modern systems. The DuckStation stuff that we've seen is pretty phenomenal, for example. Are we going to get anything like that? Has the effort gone in there? And the concept of a 30 FPS Metal Gear on Switch is kind of just ludicrous.
That's pathetic, I will say.
There's
zero excuse for that. That's just bad work from them.
Yeah.
Well, going back to Kellen Sandifer's sort of classification there, Alex is supposed to be the Sith Lord.
Yeah.
You're the Jedi Knight, but that was a very Sith.
That's true.
That was an absolute statement, John.
Yeah. Palpatine would have been proud of that. Pathetic.
Pathetic.
Yeah, so that's what we think of that. Obviously, the jury's going to be out until we actually see the game, but obviously there's a lot of confusion about it because, it looks 720p. They're saying it's 1080p. Why is it 1080p on a PS5?
Yeah, what's that
it's
about?
Baffling, right?
Mm-hmm.